Digging Deeper Without the Coldface, the podcast that shares the incredible stories of the talented and passionate people in our industry. And it's now time for this week's episode of Digging Deeper Without the Coldface. It's your host, Jessica Rouse.
The International Mining and Resources Conference and Expo, IMARC, is on the ICC in Sydney this October. We were there last year and it was my first time going to IMARC and I was absolutely blown away. On today's episode, we're catching up with event directors for IMARC, Paul Phelan and Sherene and Asnasyous. Guys, how are we?
Going well, Jess. Thanks.
Lovely to have you on the episode. October is going to be here before we know it, I think, based on how fast this year is going. Are we feeling ready?
3 months yesterday, Jess, and yeah, it was. We're just going flat out. It just doesn't stop 12 months round.
It's feeling a lot closer than previous years. So yeah, 3 months I think is going to fly by over the next couple of weeks.
No, it's such a massive thing logistically. I can only imagine all the different to-do lists and things you guys are dealing with.
Yeah, very much so. Multiple to-do lists and across the different parts of the team that need to take part in delivering an event of this scale and size.
So how long, for anyone who may not be familiar with IMARC, can we get a little bit of background? I know, Paul, you were saying that you've been involved for the last 11 years.
Yeah, so it had been going a couple of years when I first started, and I came in literally for an interview into IMARC when it was in Melbourne. I thought, it's a nice little boutique-y type of show. There was around 50 exhibitors and maybe 1,000 people there. And this year we're going to have nearly 600 exhibitors and we're looking at 13,000 plus this year as well.
Massive. How long have you been involved, Sherene?
Yeah, so I got involved, I think, in around 2017, and it was meant to be a 3-month gig for me, which then turned into this year. I think 9.5 years later, I'm still involved in the event. And in terms of sort of what I've seen over that period of time, it's quite phenomenal, not just from the scale and the size that Paul is talking about there, but also the shifts in the industry, the turnover of the people, but then some of the legends that have also remained over that 9.5 year period. But yeah, it wasn't meant to go this long for me, but here I am and looking to deliver another one this October.
Yeah, and I mean, I can imagine over the years that you guys have been involved in IMARC, obviously mining has changed dramatically over the last decade. You would have seen a lot of change.
Yeah, well, we're not mining experts. We're event people, so we go to the market and find out, what's changed and what needs to be spoken about, at IMARC, which is Sherene's specialty. So I'll let her talk to you about how that process goes. But yeah, we run on the feedback, and it changes so much every year.
Yeah, I think that, when IMARC first started, the conversation was largely around mining, investment and commodity markets. But today, IMARC is a representation of that entire mining ecosystem. And that's a result of, I think, the collaboration, the partnerships and what's going on in the industry as well. It's much more than digging out rocks from the ground. And some of that big shift has been over the years because of technology, because of new productivity measures, because of new regulation and definitely innovation. And so, these sort of shifts are becoming really important to the industry. And that's sort of bringing in different stories over the years. And even in that 9.5 year period, where it was some specific commodities were talked about. We're not talking about those commodities as much anymore. There were topics once upon a time. There was that whole ESG and energy transition sort of conversation that was very, very much part of the event. And it still is, but I think it's part and parcel of what's happening in mining. It's very similar to the safety conversation, 15, 20 years ago. It was, now it's just embedded in what operations actually do. So that sort of shift has definitely changed. But IMARC, as Paul said, is really that reflection of what that industry is telling us and what the industry priorities have been over that last decade.
And certainly something that I've noticed only having been last year and hearing about it, the conference in the past, is coal certainly seems to be quite the topic of conversation at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I like this part because there was when I sort of first started, the coal conversation was definitely not so prominent
Yeah.
at the IMARC event. Whether that's because it started in Victoria and that there's no coal mines
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Victoria, and also when it was a mining and investment event, the investment into coal wasn't kind of there. It was and now all of a sudden this year, as much as you're hearing about critical minerals and gold prices and different sort of rare earths, coal is back on the agenda for
Mm.
IMARC and industry. Good on governments for sort of making some movement there on the coal topic. And as a result, not only do we have coal conversations at IMARC, but I think it's been a representation of not just keynote speeches, not just of a networking reception that we're going to have on coal, but now attendance is coming from those coal companies and coal players, whether it's from the Hunter Valley, from Queensland, from overseas. Like there's a large delegation from parts of Indonesia and Southeast Asia, where coal's place in that mining story is definitely back on the agenda.
Yeah. How important, Paul, is that international side of the conference?
Yeah, look, the governments, especially with the changing geopolitical atmosphere around the world, the governments are coming to talk about their own critical minerals and then also what their investment opportunities are, because they find that they all need to know what their plan A, plan B, and plan C is
Mm.
because of some of the world leaders at the moment who are a little erratic in their decision making. So it's great for us that they get to come to Sydney and talk about what the opportunities are. And it's not just that; it's the Latin American, the Canadians, the Americans, and the Europeans, especially this year, that are all coming to share, what their knowledge is, but then also to come and learn from Australia, which is one of the
Yeah.
preeminent technology and mining in areas from around the world.
Mm. It's such a great opportunity for us to expose ourselves to those international people who are coming as well, whether it's to show them the technology that we have or the innovation or what we're mining. I mean, I learned so much having not been exposed to international mining before. It's such a great opportunity.
Jess, I think that's an important part there that you've touched on is what IMARC, I mean, the first letter of IMARC is I for international. And I think, that is first and foremost one of the things that we as an event have ensured that we continue to scale up and really concentrate on. And often people tell us that you can go to a lot of events around Australia, and not that they're in silo, but obviously they're very Australia orientated, or they are regionally orientated in terms of the conversations and also the delegations. But IMARC is starting to become the anchor point for not just the Australian market, but the international market to come to. And I think this gives great exposure to some of the best practices that Australia has. But I think at the crux of all of that is it's the Australia industry that has really, allowed that attraction, right? The bilateral partnerships that are being signed on the JVs between Australian companies and so forth. And you're seeing so much more of that in the coal industry, specifically like GM3 and Tarmor, for example. And, these international players are sort of saying, well, actually, the commodities are here, the best practices are here, it's a good, safe jurisdiction. And so that attraction is definitely allowing us to further grow that
Mm.
international perspective around the event.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, what makes this year's IMARC different to IMARCs previously?
Well, we did speak about this last week, and the exciting thing is how quickly that technology and innovation is actually changing. I mean, even I think 5 years ago, we had a theatre called The Future of Energy, and I sat in there thinking, wow, this stuff's 10 years away. becoming usable. And 2 years later, we had to change the theatre name because that future was already here. So this year, the emergence and I guess the extra use of AI, the data integration used to be the biggest thing, but now AI has actually taken over the conversation on that side as well. Some of the companies that we're talking to come into IMARC, we haven't heard of some of them before, and you get into that conversation. It's like, wow, you guys are serious about what you're doing. Come and tell us, come and show your wares. So every year there's new features, there's new equipment, and then there's new opportunities to speak to people about some of the industry trends that you might not even know about.
Exactly. And Sherene, there's quite a big focus this year on not just having business owners and those people in those upper tiers of, companies and businesses come along to IMARC. It's getting the guys and girls who are on the ground to IMARC as well, the ones who are on the ground either digging out the coal or an enviro or whoever it might be.
Yeah. Look, I think when we started this year's planning, we looked at some of the things that IMARC is great at, and that's definitely bringing the industry together to have those national, international conversations and showcases. But we also looked at some of the particular gaps that we at IMARC had as an event. And we wanted to raise and increase. I think one of our strategic initiatives is about increasing the number of operators that we see at IMARC. And when you have a thematic for IMARC 2026, which is around from strategy to execution, those that are part of that execution story are those that are integral to the mine site itself and the actual operational excellence, the productivity. It is the guys and girls who are obviously at the mine site or at the coalface, that are doing what they need to do. And so we implemented and thought about, well, how are we going to increase that part of the event? And so it's not just, signing investment deals, or it's not just about business to business or procurement, but it's also about providing operators with accessibility to, as Paul said, some of the innovations, some of the best practices in the industry, whether national or internationally. And so simple things like adding in maintenance of competency courses, allowing more operators to be speakers in the program, thinking about also, transportation to get these people to the IMARC event. We reduced barriers, or are looking to reduce those barriers for operators to come along to IMARC to be able to experience an international event of this scale and size, but still walk away with that international sort of, best practices as we've talked about. And that's one of the key reasons that we don't have a fee associated for any mine operator. So if you're a mine operator in engineering, technical services, maintenance, an enviro that you're talking about, Jess, whether you're in the mining sector or even in a contractor sense, we talk to TSAT, who's out there at their sites as well, is if you're a miner or a contractor and you're boots to ground and looking for those best practices, we want you to come to IMARC. And we're balancing that C-suite business conversation at IMARC with the operator side. And I think that's what 2026 is really about.
Yeah. And encouraging that next generation to come through as well. I mean, often those operators and those people on the ground are that younger generation who have many years left in the industry. So encouraging them to stay in it and learn all of this stuff.
Yeah, look, this is one particular area that I'm really personally passionate about, is making sure that young people and that next generation of the mining industry can see what a modern mining industry looks like. And so our Next Gen program, which was launched a few years ago, started with, undergraduates and graduates who were looking at the mining sector. But that's expanded considerably now, right? So we have over 660 Next Gen attendees.
Which we have a number of university students, and then also a group of secondary students, and then on the last day, a group of primary students that come through and get told about the opportunities, or learn about the opportunities in the mining industry for what they do at home, which is, playing on their PlayStation or doing different things, it actually can turn into a discussion about, that you can have a job in mining that is quite like that. And it's really exciting on the Thursday when the kids come through. Because after 2 days of conference and exhibition, people can be a bit jaded, but people really spark up and get really excited about seeing the next generation of possible miners coming through and discussing with them, and everyone just finds that extra level of energy on the Thursday then.
Yeah, and I feel like I know in New South Wales and Queensland at least there are so many more programs getting rolled out into schools, introducing them to the mining industry. But a lot of these young people may have never been exposed to it before.
And they do. They when they walk through the exhibition, they look at some of these things and say, "Wow, I can actually do that already by if I put this together and that together." And you can see their minds starting to tick over as to what those opportunities can be. And with the tertiary education kids who come through, the uni undergrads mainly, they get an opportunity to talk to some of the senior miners. They have like faux interviews,
Yeah.
talk about what the opportunities are, where you can go all over the world, with your degree or with what education certificate you have, and it really opens the eyes to a lot of them that it's not just Hunter Valley or it's not just Bowen Basin. It can be in any place all over the world, really.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely a cool part of what you've been able to do with IMARC, Sherene.
I think it's that idea that if we want a future mining industry, it starts at this young age and exposing the industry to what's available and the communities, but also to the current industry players and that accessibility. And I think that's the key thing there. It's accessibility.
Definitely. What's something that both of you are really looking forward to seeing this year at IMARC? Is there an element of the conference or a particular, I don't know, someone who's going to be there showing their wares?
I think the presence of the American government is another real a big fillip for us. It's going to be across different areas, but for me, because I'm an exhibition person more so than a conference person,
Yeah.
so it's for me, it's seeing the new equipment that comes in, and seeing people's eyes light up when they walk in and they see from one end to the other. There's so many different things they can look at. There are a couple of big, I guess what you'd call. It was called the Grand Slam of events around the world, which is there's one in South Africa at Mining Indaba and PDAC in Canada, and we always had a sort of a vision of being like one of those. So when we get these visitors coming through saying, "Oh, it's actually like Indaba," that's it's really exciting for us to hear, because it now it shows that they understand how big around the world, how big IMARC is as a brand that is globally recognised now.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Shireen?
Yeah, look, for me, I think it's this idea that the industry is, and it always has been a relationship driven industry, right? So, um, because I get to see all these little bits of pieces of information and who's coming and why they're coming and that sort of thing, for me, I'm really excited this year about the connections that are going to be made because of the local, the domestic, national, international opportunities across that entire value chain that's going to be available. We've increased the number of sideline events that are going to be taking place, the number of networking opportunities. Um, and it doesn't matter who you are in the industry, whether you're a next gen person, whether you're a CEO, you get to go on a CEO lunch sort of thing, or if you're a part of the operator series, there's an operator session for you, that connection is going to be greater than I think we've had and seen before. And that connection then allows people's further business or their next project to really change and move our industry forward. I mean, I always joke about our iMark Connect app. I don't know if you have a chance on playing on that app at all, Jess, last year?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah. So the iMark Connect app, my joke always is it's kind of like a dating app of the mining industry at iMark, because you can literally put up your profile and say, I am Joe and I'm a coal miner from the Hunter Valley and this is what I'm interested in. And then the 12,000 or so attendees can go on there and, send a meeting request to you, and you can swipe yes or no, right or left, and make that decision on if you want to connect with them on the app, and then have that meeting at IMARC. And so,
Yeah.
over 5,500 meetings take place in this lounge that we've got using that app. But it's that broader idea that, at the end of the day, I think it's about creating those opportunities for connection this year that's going to be greater than I think what we've had before.
That's awesome. It's going to be an incredible event, guys. I am very much looking forward to it. For anyone who wants to get some more information, get hold of those operator tickets, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, look, those operator tickets, we've got a specific web page just for operators. Targeted at you guys to be able to go in, make it nice and easy for you to click to claim your free pass to attend. If you're in the Hunter area, also if you're in the Southern Coalfields, even if you're up in Lithgow, we even have the transportation service that you can click on for to get on a daily bus to come out to IMARC as well. But yeah, mining operators from across the globe can claim those particular passes. But it's all on our website. There's QR codes going around, and we have a lot of partners who are also helping share the registration and the different opportunities for people to get involved this year.
There's also networking drinks at the end of days 1 and day 2, which are also, one of the times that you can meet somebody who you might have had a bad day, and you have a drink at the end of the day, and you turn around and said, I've been, dying to meet this guy. And the person you talk to says, he's just over there, let's go and introduce him. And that's what happens, at events like this. It's, you're never out of the action, right from the start to right to the end.
Yeah, exactly. No, you should always take advantage of those more casual networking opportunities because you never know who you're going to come across.
Absolutely.
Sherene and Paul, thank you so much for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you at IMARC.
Excellent.
Sounds great, Jess. See you there.
Good, Jess. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Digging Deeper with At the Coalface. You can download more episodes of the podcast on all your favourite podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, also on YouTube, Amazon Music, all the usual places. Make sure you leave us a rating and a review. We'd love to hear what you thought. And if you do have a story idea or something you'd like us to talk about on the podcast, please send me an email, jess@thecoalface.net.au. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll be back next time for another episode of Digging Deeper with At the Coalface.